Oh, it's Mike from Dimensional Walking. Today we're going to do a video on telepathy, and we're going to do the naked science first, okay? And then we're gonna call this telepathy, the naked science unveiling the potential. And then we're going to do an alien and a cryptid, okay? And those are from my own personal experiences, just so you know. Okay? But hang in there, and we'll go through the naked science first. So, the concept of telepathy is the direct transfer of information between minds without using sensory channels. Has captured humanity's interest for centuries, from ancient myths to science fiction. The idea of mind to mind communication, of course, has always persisted. However, the realm of naked science uh, must approach this phenomenon with rigorous skepticism and a focus on testable hypotheses. So, we're going to start with that naked science stuff, okay? So, here we go. So, the current scientific landscape, skepticism, and anomalies, the prevailing scientific consensus is that telepathy, as traditionally understood, lacks robust empirical support. Uh, Meta-analysis of parapsychology studies often cited uh, that they have significant flaws, publication biased, and lack uh, repeating results. The burden of proof lies heavily on these claiming uh, telepathic abilities. So far, that burden has not been met with convincing evidence. Okay? Again, that's the naked science. However, dismissing the concept entirely might be premature. There are areas where the boundaries of communication and information transfer have been pushed, and where naked science may actually offer alternate interpretations. Okay, so let's talk about that. Neural collatus, collatus of consciousness and information transfer. Modern neuroscience is making significant strides in understanding the neural concepts of consciousness. Brain imaging techniques like MRIs and EEGs allow us to observe brain activity associated with thoughts, emotions, and intentions. If thoughts are fundamentally patterns of neurological activity, then theoretically these patterns can be decoded and potentially transferred. Okay? Then we have something called the computer interfaces, which they're working on. Elon Musk is actually working on those, or has in the past. So they call them the BCIs, are already demonstrating potential for direct communication between brains, human brains, and external devices. While current BCIs primarily focus on translating brain signals into commands for computers and prosthetics, the underlying principle of decoding neural activity is relevant to telepathy. Furthermore, researchers are exploring biodirectional BCIs, which not only read brain signals but also write information back into the brain. This could potentially enable transmission of sensory feedback or even complex cognitive information. Imagine a prosthetic limb that not only responds to your thoughts, but also provides tactic sensations directly to your brain, meaning it can actually feel. Okay. Neural decoding. Researchers are developing sophisticated algorithms to decode complex neural patterns. This includes attempts to restructure visual images, auditory experiences, and even uh, systematic content of brain activity. For instance, studies have shown that the ability to reconstruct rough images from the brain activity while a person is viewing visual stimuli. This involves complex algorithms that translate patterns of neural firing into pixelated representations. While this is in its early stages, this research lays the groundwork for understanding how information is encoded in the brain. And we got something called the non-invasive brain stimulation, which is called TMS, a transcranial magnetic stimulation. And then there's something else called DCS, okay? And that can modulate brain activity non-invasively. These methods are being explored for uh, therapeutic purposes, but they also raise the possibility of influence or transmitting information between brains, which would be telepathically doing so. Potential for interbrain communication. While highly speculative, combining neural decoding and non-invasive brain stimulation could, in theory, allow for the transmission of encoded neural patterns from one brain to another. This would not be this would not be the same as telepathy in the traditional sense, but rather a technological mediated form of mind to mind communication. So they don't want to jump out there and say this would be telepathy, but they're actually kind of calling it calling it that by saying mediated form of mind to mind communication. Okay. Quantum entanglement in biological systems. Quantum entanglement is a phenomenon where two particles become correlated in the same way that the state of one instantaneously affects the other, regardless of distance, has been proposed as a possible mechanism for telepathy. And that's where I think it is. That's where I think telepathy is. Quantum entanglement. Okay? But let me go on. Biological quantum effects. While quantum entanglement is well established in physics, its role in biological systems is still debated. Some research propose that quantum effects may play a role in brain function, particularly in processes like consciousness and information processing. Well, I think that's being pretty close to telepathy, but okay. Challenge and speculation. The idea of quantum entanglement facilitating telepathy faces significant challenges. Maintaining quantum cohesion is the warm, noisy environment of the brain is extremely difficult. Therefore, there is no direct scientific proof of entanglement engaging information transfer between brains. Okay? Of course, that's naked silence, science again talking. However, some researchers continue to publish research on the topic. So there's always this interest, and it's going to continue. The role of biological uh, electromagnetic fields. Okay, the brain generates electromagnetic fields that can be measured by EEGs and MEGs. Some researchers theorize that these fields may carry information that could be detected and interpreted by other brains. Okay, so I guess what they're saying is we can hear other people's thoughts. Okay, so I think that's very possible too. Biological electronic communication. Some animals, such as sharks and electric eels, use electromagnetic fields for communication and navigation. While electromagnetic fields generated by human brains are much weaker, it's not entirely inconceivable that they may play a role in substantial forms of communication. And even, I guess, what they really want to say, I think it was more subtle forms of communication. The importance of further research. The more research is needed to understand the information content of biological electromagnetic fields and whether they can be detected and interpreted by other organisms. Ethical, and of course, we also have ethical interpretation and rigorous experimentation. As we delve deeper into the possibilities of brain to brain communication, uh, ethical considerations has to become paramount. The potential for misuse is significant. We got privacy concerns, of course. The ability to decode thoughts uh, would create serious concerns about privacy, um, and manipulation and control. The potential for influencing or even controlling someone's thoughts arises ethical questions about autonomy and free will. Social implications. How would society adapt to a world where mind-to-mind communication is possible? Would it? Um, what different things would it create? What other madnesses could it possibly create? Um, so the history. So then let's drop back to the history of uh, parapsychology. Okay, and that's where you know communication with aliens or cryptids or all this other stuff kind of falls into. Okay, so the history of parapsychology is littered with poorly designed studies and anecdotal evidence. To advance our understanding of the potential of brain to brain interpretations, we need to adhere to the highest standards of scientific rigor, which must include, of course, uh, uh, studies that are repeatable. Uh, Control groups must include appropriate control groups to rule out alternate explanations. Objective measures, subjective experience, and anecdotal reports must be supplemented with objective measures of brain activity and behavior. By embracing a rigorous and ethical approach, we can more closer understand the true potential of the naked science of uh, telepathy. Okay, so let's go back to the paranormal. Okay, so I had an alien telepathy experience. I had to pause there for a minute because I wasn't really sure what kind of experience it was, but it was a telepathy experience on a park bench in Park City, not Park City. I'm sorry, not Park City, Peachtree City, Georgia. Park City had all kinds of other experiences, but not the alien telling me something on a bench. So basically, I'll tell you this quick story again. I've told it before. I was sitting on a bench. I lived in Peachtree City, Georgia, for many years, and I happened to be in that. It's a beautiful little place, and they had little shops and things like that, and places where you can get food, etc. And I happened to be waiting for my family. I was sitting on this bench outside of a pizza place in Peachtree City, Georgia, and suddenly, out of the blue, a voice came into my mind and basically told me, reality is not what it seems, Michael. And you remember that the rest of your life. And I did remember it the rest of my life. I still remember it the rest of my life. And I will remember it to my grave. Um, but, anyways, I had this experience. I'm not losing my mind. I wasn't losing my mind. Basically, that was the only time that's ever happened. And I listened to it, and it did sound like it definitely was a voice. It didn't sound human, but it did not sound completely robotic or anything like that. Um, and so that was my experience there. I believe that to be exactly what it was, a telepathic communication. Okay. Then I did have another one now with an alien this time, with a cryptid. I was camping in, let's see, that would have been Eastern Washington. And I was at a campground with a friend, and I got another communication. This time, I believe it was from a Sasquatch. And the Sasquatch says, "I'm coming. Do not be afraid." That's simple. That's all it was, but it was very clear. Okay. And I will tell you that within a few minutes, there was a big hairy hand that landed on my shoulder. It was let me make sure I get this right. It was my right shoulder. It was my left shoulder. I'm sorry. It was my left shoulder. I was laying on my right side in the tent, and it was at night. A big hairy hand ended up on my uh, left shoulder, and that was it. It stayed there for a couple minutes, probably. It seemed like forever. It stayed there, didn't hurt me or anything, and that was the end of it. But I had that experience, that telepathic experience from a cryptid. So I believe it exists. I don't think human to human can do it yet, but I think other creatures and aliens can definitely do it. Anyways, with all that said, hopefully you thought that was kind of interesting, and that's it. We'll see you. Bye bye.